Welcome back to our Big O retrospective on the characters. Now, having just looked at Roger Smith, it's time to look at the android that started it all, R. Dorothy Wainwright. Dorothy, of course, is a fan favorite of the series, and it's very obvious as to why. She's very blunt, sarcastic, and intelligent, and this creates a character which, on the surface level, is the quintessential sarcastic partner. Someone with good intentions, but is still going to judge everyone involved. Many people find this character type endearing as they will, say what everyone else wants to. She lacks tact and will simply say what she means and mean what she says. There is more to this character below this level of sarcasm, though. In fact, I would go as far to say that of all the characters of the series, hers is the closest to having any kind of tragic character arc. I do not think hers is a tragic character, but it definitely isn't the happiest, or at least until the ending, depending on how you read into that. But you see, a lot of people like the character because of how blunt and sarcastic it is. However, not everyone asks why her character is like this. And no, it isn't because she's an android. The Big O goes out of its way to show that androids are very much human in every regard save the physical. The characters of R. Instro, Roscoe Fitzgerald, Big Ear, and several others are all very much human, and don't really exhibit any, classic robot or android character tropes. That is not to say Dorothy isn't human, however, and it's not to say that she exhibits many of these tropes because she lacks humanity. In fact, I would say that she is very much human, just one that enjoys sarcasm and might be a little depressed. Probably depressed. Her humanity, though, should not be questioned. Instead, what should be questioned is how it manifests. And the causes behind how it manifests are why I think she's a bit of a tragic and later inspiring character. First, we need to see how Dorothy fits into the plot, however. R. Dorothy Wainwright is introduced in the first episode as the kidnappee which Roger Smith must negotiate a release for. After these negotiations go awry, however, Roger concludes the case to be done with, as he technically did secure Dorothy's escape, although the loose ends of the case still nag at him. And eventually he decides to learn more of Dorothy and finds out that she is with her grandfather, the man who built her. Tragically, once Roger meets both of them, Timothy Wainwright, her grandfather, is killed, and Dorothy has her memory drive taken, which Beck uses to jury-rig a giant robot to steal a mint. This bothers Roger, as now he sees that A, the loose ends from the case came back to bite him, and B, Beck is proving a threat to the city. As such, he seeks to finish the deal by both rescuing Dorothy and retrieving her memory core, and stopping Beck for good. Dorothy is grateful for this, but, apparently having no money, she decides to pay off her debt to Roger with labor. Now this sets up Dorothy to be around the Smith estate, and in turn join Roger on many of his adventures, and become a key character later on in the show. In fact, I would say probably the number 2 overall. After Roger, of course. Anyways, she rescues Roger several times, and serves as a kind of rock for him, as shown in several episodes like 14 and 26. She even develops feelings for him, but is initially rebuffed. By the start of the Union plot, the two have grown closer in many ways, and after her memory core is stolen again, Roger sets out to rescue her. However, in the end, she ends up rescuing him, and her humanity and agency are confirmed as Dorothy is now able to operate without her memory disk. In fact, she seems not to need it at all. In the end, she is side by side with Roger inside the Big O as he defeats Big Foul and later talks down Angel. But let's get back to that sarcasm now. You see, while sarcasm can be the result of intentional effort at comedy, the kind Dorothy exudes, and often the kind audiences like, is more the result of some kind of disconnect. It's a coping method. At the start of the series, Dorothy comes off as very disconnected to the world around her, though in a very subtle way. She isn't violent or rude, simply disinterested and apathetic. It's not to say she can't understand her humanity because it is too weak. She cannot be bothered to because it's actually quite strong. And this hints at sadness, this lack of being able to be bothered. This sadness, in turn, probably originates from several main places. First, Dorothy is acutely aware of the fact that she's not the real Dorothy, i.e. the biological one, but rather a nightingale meant to serve as a duplicate for her dead biological inspiration. She knows that she was not created to be herself per se, but to be someone else. And she's very blunt with this. She's very open about it. And she seems to be quite aware of it. Secondly, just as she's accepting her role as a nightingale, and seemingly enjoying it to some extent, that too is torn away from her when Timothy is tragically killed in the altercation. This leaves her lacking both a sense of self, i.e. original identity, and a sense of context, i.e. a role, to frame herself in. She's a completely blank slate. Now, this is an exceedingly rare state for a full-grown adult to be in, and it is now up to her to determine both and, in turn, shape herself. This, combined with the shock of her recent losses, sets up a character to start off as a bit withdrawn and sad, android or not. You see, withdrawal from the world is a very natural struggle for many people dealing with loss and depression. It's a coping mechanism to deal with not wanting to feel the pain again. In fact, the fact that she shows these proves her humanity, even if the early cinematography goes out of its way to emphasize how mechanical she is physically. This, in turn, becomes her story and her character's focal point, climbing out of loss, determining who she wants to be, and more openly expressing her humanity along the way. She has ups and downs, and even comes close to giving up at times, it seems. For example, there are instances where she seemingly allows herself to be harmed or captured, like during the Union arc. I would like to go on a little tangent here, as I do find these instances to be very interesting from a logistical point of view, like, in the writer's room, as it's either very good or very bad writing, and I can elaborate on how it's kind of both. It could be very good writing. It could, let us see her character, as showing us just how someone may seem fine, they may not be, and that people can hide what they truly feel. Sometimes the great struggles within them may make them want to give up. This would make Dorothy, seemingly putting herself in harm's way, an excellent insight into the difficulty of shaping oneself and dealing with loss, especially when doubt abounds and nothing seems certain, when someone is trying to figure out who they are with no clear guidance on their own. It shows navigating loss and sadness is a day-by-day affair, and it takes time and support to fully come to terms with any such thing, though it is possible, even if at times the person dealing with it may want to give up. However, such instances could also be terrible writing if we look at it from a practical point of view. And let me get into that. You see, sometimes it feels like the writers in the writer room said, we need Dorothy captured. We need this to happen to move the plot along. But then they didn't really know how to, because it's been established that she has superhuman speed and strength, and is pretty much able to defend herself in any real way should she choose to. So the writers, again, not knowing how to get around this practically, just go, she's a big mood. She can't fight. She's having a moment. And the idea that this is contrived, she has emotional moments because they needed to write her getting kidnapped or something or harmed, is also supported by her seemingly at times random ability to talk to the Bigs or other big machines with the machine tongue. When she kind of just gets that 1,000-yard stare and does that weird text garble thing. Although this is toned down later on, maybe they were trying to do something with that. They don't really. Some of it isn't explained. Anyways, I think both are possible, though I think I lean towards the former, as it fits with the character more, and if it is used to justify, contrivances in the later cases, it does so gracefully enough for the series to get away with it. I remember thinking this in episode 22 or 23 when she gets kidnapped by Beck, so that Rosewater could power Big Foul. I remember thinking that and saying, wow, she could have just ran away, but, I guess, that fits with the characters. That's where I felt it was the most contrived. I just wanted to go on a little tangent there, because her character is, physically superhuman, but sometimes it feels like it's not. Anyways, like anyone else going on a great journey, she experiences setbacks, on this journey, as we all do. Her interpersonal skills start off very cold and rusty, and although she is by no means gregarious by the end, they're definitely improved. She also struggles with her strongly implied feelings for Roger Smith. This is brought up in episode 9, when she straight up asks him if they would have fallen in love had they no memories, to which Roger initially spawns with the classic, what? Quick aside, again, I do see some room for debate here as whether or not this was intended to be a serious or throwaway line, as, this is exactly what happened to Mr. Weiss, this stud. And some people might think, oh, she's just throwing in a sarcastic line to mess with him, but I don't think this is the case. I think it was meant to be at least somewhat serious, and it's definitely made increasingly so as it's referenced throughout the series. As Dorothy seems to fixate it from time to time. In fact, in episode 18, she goes as far to call Roger, quote, the man she loves, to his face, though she walks it back when it seems, it didn't quite land again. Well, again, some debate can be made in this other instance, because episode 18 is the best comedy episode. It is probably the only sole comedy episode, like solely focused on comedy. I feel that it's consistent enough with both the overall writing and the character to be seen as a serious statement. And in fact, the implied feelings between the two go on to shape the ending. And while she seems like down, due to the initial answer, she eventually decides that she will stick by Roger in some capacity because, why not? And their feelings evolve into a mutual respect, and maybe more. I don't know. I don't want to talk about the whole android-human thing. In the Big O universe, that doesn't seem to be an issue. People don't really care, it seems. Look at Roscoe, that guy. But, I don't know. But that's not the point. The point is that, she's human. And it's quite ironic that for as blunt of a character as Dorothy is, it's actually a bit difficult to get to her core. Though if I had to summarize everything and, cut out all the contrivances that I may or may not have mentioned here, I would say that Dorothy at her core is a woman, saddened by both her initial lack of original identity, context, and loss. And sarcasm helps her deal with this, because she's a logical woman, and, logical people like to look at things head on. They like to see the facts on the ground and work with them as best they can. They don't want to run. And as time goes on, all of this becomes part of who she is, and she evolves and grows and determines how so, and in which directions. But she still remains growing from the same, base. With this great internal challenge, she even seems like giving up from time to time. Though in the end she does an admirable job, first tapping into her humanity, then determining who she wants to be, and finally deciding how she will be that person. You see, while Dorothy is a subtly tragic character, she's also a subtly inspirational one. She constructs herself and her truths, but in a more humble and healthy way than, say, Rosewater. You see, Rosewater has a truth he doesn't like and tries to bend the world to change this. Dorothy adjusts herself and approaches her setbacks logically. She knows that she must adapt to her new life and setting and role, and does the best to do so. She knows who she is, but she does not try to assert herself to others. She doesn't let others step on her, but at the same time she really doesn't care for what others think. While Alex does everything to prove a single point, Dorothy starts off with a person who has lost every point, and does everything to make her new. As a result, she embarks on a slow but steady pace of character growth, and along with her obvious emotions, proves her humanity. Sure, she's disconnected and apathetic at times, but she overcomes this, and as the series progresses lives her own life more and more. Sure, Roger gave her the old, what? She doesn't let this hold her down. Plus, it's implied she may have changed his mind by the end of the series. By the end of the series, she's essentially made her own self, and those close to her cherish her for who she has made herself, and not who she was made to be.